everybody, it's Em, and welcome to Sewing Supplies. This video is going to focus on what you actually need to start sewing and what it's used for, all that fun stuff, because I know that's why you're here. Because sewing is fun, and that's what I said in the first video is the main focus of the channel. Let's get started. The most important thing that you need to sew is a needle and a thread. Because sewing is putting two or more pieces of fabric together using an adhesive, which is usually thread. You don't glue fabric together and call it sewing, you call it gluing fabric together. So the most important thing with sewing is to have your needle, your thread, and your fabric. We're going to start though with the thread, because thread is really super cool. So it comes in all sorts of different colors and sizes and spool types. So right here I have three different spools. I have a 225 yard spool. This is the spool that most people see and use. This is enough for any project and you have some leftovers. This spool of thread has 547 yards of thread on it when it was new. I actually used this thread when I made my prom dress, so there's definitely way less than 547 yards of thread here. There are 2,000 yards of thread on each of these. Thread comes in all sorts of colors and weights, like these are all lightweight threads. Then there's heavier weight thread that's harder to break. This actually, it takes actually a lot of pressure to break it, whereas if I was trying to break this kind of thread, it just kind of snaps. This one you actually have to like tug at it. This kind of thread is used for shirring, which is putting gathers into fabric, which I'll show you how to do. We're going to do a project with that. It's a heavier weight thread. This is normal weight thread. This is heavier weight thread. A hand needle is, this is a basic hand needle. It is a long metal stick with a point at one end and a hole at the other. The thread goes through the hole. You use the pointy end to stick through the fabric and go up and down and up and down and up and it's basically, that's a basic stitch. So that's that. You cannot use a hand needle to put into a sewing machine because they are different. Your machine needles are bulkier at the top and then they taper down to a point, and they have basically it's like a half moon shape with a flat side and a round side, and that gets stuck up the machine's butt. Not really. There's a little spot in the machine where you put the needle in, and I'll go over that in a later video, but you can't mix up a hand needle and a machine needle, and we'll get into all that. So sewing machines are really cool. So this is my sewing machine. It's a Pfaff 360 from the 1960s, 1950s? I don't know. It's from a while back. So it's a basic sewing machine. It's got the front, reverse, tension, zigzag features. This part comes up to create a more of a table to sew on. The thread goes up there. And then under here is the bobbin case. This is where the bobbin goes. The needle. Do not ever put your fingers in a position where you can get hurt by the needle, because that would suck, and we're not about that here. Okay, so things you really should have for a sewing machine. You need thread, you need needles, you need feet. Machine feet are definitely among things that you need to have. They are different. There are different kinds, as with everything. So the basic machine foot is called a presser foot. It is like this. This is a presser foot. It's got a plate on it that, see, mine's old. They usually like go like that so they can deal with like bumps in the fabric or ruffles. But this is your basic sewing foot. You could use this for anything, really. They make ruffle feet, they make hemming feet. Zipper feet are really important to have. I actually don't have a real zipper foot for this machine. I have one for my school machine, which is industrial. This is what I use at home to set zippers. It's not a real zipper foot. If it was I'm actually not sure what kind of foot this is, so if somebody knows and wants to tell me, I would really appreciate that. But basically a zipper foot is this without this being there. A zipper foot is half of a presser foot, and it lets you get really close to the side of the zipper so that way you can't see anything but the teeth of the zipper when you're setting it. Also for sewing machines, you need bobbins. This is an empty bobbin. These get wound with thread, so that way you have a full bobbin. And this is what goes in the lower part of your machine, and this is what locks the upper thread in place. You need 2 threads to have a sewing machine work properly. You just have to find which bobbins fit your machine. It doesn't matter if it's metal or plastic. These both fit my FAF, so I use both of them. Right now this has a denim top stitch thread in it, which you can see it's definitely thicker. And this has shirring thread in it because I was working on a homework project for school that required shirring. So I'm putting this away now. Seam rippers are important to have because as much as we would all like to think we're perfect and we don't make mistakes, sadly we do. And sometimes you sew a seam that's too far over or it's crooked and you need to redo it. And if you use a pair of scissors to try and snip your seam open, you're more than likely going to snip your fabric. So seam rippers were invented to go between the layers of fabric and cut the stitches you put in that you don't want there anymore with precision. Scissors are very important that you have 3 different pairs of scissors. You have your paper scissors that you only use for cutting paper. You have your fabric scissors that you only use for cutting fabric, and thread scissors, which really only work for cutting thread. The reason you have 3 different pairs of scissors is because paper dulls the blade. So you don't want to be taking your nice fabric scissors, and ruining the sharp blade, which I really shouldn't. Yeah. You don't want to be ruining the nice sharp blade you have on your fabric scissors by dulling it with paper. You don't want to be cutting fabric for a project and not able to make a clean cut with your paper scissors. And your thread scissors, your paper scissors aren't going to do a nice clean cut on thread, and to use your nice sharp scissors to just do one snip of maybe one thread, it doesn't make sense. So you just use thread scissors for thread. Fabric scissors, it's important that you have a nice pair. I have 2 pairs. One's at school, one's here. These are my metal ones. My ones at school have really nice comfy handles. So you just find a pair that you like how it feels. Singer makes them. There are, like, if you have a Joann's Fabrics near you or whatever fabric store you use, you just go in there and say, hey, I need a pair of fabric scissors, and they'll be able to help you just fine. Pins and pin cushions. Most people know pin cushions is the little red tomato things that have all the stuff stuck in them, which that's a pin cushion. That's the kind of pin cushion that's the most common. This is my pin cushion because I lost my tomato pin cushion and I needed a pin cushion. So pins, there's different kinds of pins, like there's different kinds of everything. There's pretty pins with the pearlized glass top. These are commonly used for quilting, not so much with if you're making clothes, but if that's what you have, there's really no need to go run out and buy new pins. The ones I use in school are called number 17 pins. They are just all metal like this, and they have a little metal top. They come in boxes like this. They come in boxes like this. Basically, whatever pins you have, it's fine to use. You want to have a measuring tape because you need to be able to measure things. Most of them come with inches and centimeters. So on this channel, I'm going to be working in inches because that's what I know how to use, and that's what I'm being taught in school. So for my international friends, you just take what I'm telling you and convert it to centimeters. It's based around you and your measurements, so just have your measurements listed out. Same goes for anyone who doesn't use the metric system. Just get your measurements, write them down. It'll make your life easier in the long run. So as far as other things that you want when you're sewing, it definitely helps to create a professional looking garment. When you press the seams in between and press the fabric, it helps with the fit. It helps create something that looks like you would buy it in a store and not like, oh, I made that in my basement. So you definitely want to have an iron with a steam feature. I haven't used this one yet, so I can't actually tell you how well it works, but it's a Black & Decker Avant steam, so I'm hoping it works. I feel like it will. It's like Avant steam. How fancy. And then the last thing really that you, like as far as machinery goes, that you might want to have if you don't already have. If you don't already have it, you don't see yourself sewing on a large scale, or you just want to learn how, you don't need to get one. I have one of these machines because I do this a lot. It's called a serger or an overlock machine, and what this machine does is it finishes hems. It's a one-trick pony. Basically, it cuts the seam allowance down and finishes it at the same time. So the machine looks like this right there. So the machine looks like this. There's a, this is where the needle is. There's also a blade hidden in there that cuts the fabric at the same time it cuts the fabric at the same time as using the three or four threads. You see it's up there, thread. And it basically, it finishes the garment for you. It's not necessary to have one. It's nice to have. You can get one. I got mine on overstock.com and it works just fine. My suggestion though, learn how to thread your serger, because if it stops working, usually what happens with mine, if it starts skipping stitches and just not working, all I have to do is rethread the machine for it to start working properly. And learning how to thread a serger is not something people usually learn. So definitely learn how to do that. And the last thing that I need to touch on today is fabric. So most of what we're going to be working on at first here is going to be cotton fabric, because cotton is a good fabric to start with. It doesn't slide against itself when you're trying to sew a seam. It's not slippery. It really doesn't shrink all that much. So there's fabric like this, which is a lighter weight cotton that's developed for use in dress shirts. It's called shirting. So the next fabric is this bright orange cotton, very lightweight fabric. This is not something you would usually see used on clothing. This is more of a quilting fabric. I actually don't see why anyone would use this on clothes, because this color is very bright and very overpowering. I'm probably going to use this when we do our seam sampler, which is the first project that we're going to tackle here. So this is more of a quilting fabric. It's just a basic woven cotton fabric. And then quilting cottons are my guilty pleasure when it comes to fabric because they're so patterned and brightly colored, and then they can be muted, and there's just so many different ways that it can be taken. Like, some common misconceptions I've heard about quilts are that they're old, they're boring. They're really not, because the fabrics that you can find in a quilt shop are so cool, and they're really great fabrics to start out working with. So this is leftovers from a pair of shorts I made one of my best friends a couple of years back, and this is one example of a floral printed quilting cotton. So it's a heavier weight cotton that's not too heavy. It's a medium weight cotton, and it's just great to start working with. This is another floral printed cotton fabric, quilting cotton. And this is another one. You might be able to tell I have a thing for flower prints. I actually just love prints in general. I have some really cool prints that I can't wait to use with you guys. So don't worry if you don't have everything that we're using right off the bat, because all you're really going to need for the first project videos, we're going to be doing seams. So you're going to need your plain fabric. I'm going to use this obnoxiously bright yellow-orange color with an equally obnoxiously bright thread that will stand out against this so you can see. You're going to need your basic fabric. You're going to need your sewing machine. You're going to need a zipper foot. You're going to need a presser foot. And you're going to need thread and an iron and an ironing board. But the only thing you really, if you don't already have a zipper foot, that's the only thing you really need to worry about buying. Unless you don't want to learn how to set a zipper as we're going along and you want to go back and do it, don't worry about it. You can come back and watch these videos anytime. So don't worry. If you don't have obnoxiously bright orange fabric, you can use whatever you want. Bye. Don't forget to comment, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and share this video with everyone, because the more people we get watching these, the faster I'm going to end up making them. And I can't wait to get started. So I'll see you guys next time. Love you. Bye.